What's the worst anyone has ever fricked you over? Not too terrible, but it sucked at the time. My college roommate took care of all the bills, so I just wrote him a check each month for my half, and he paid the rent, electricity, etc. Then one day some of his friends from out of town visited for the weekend. I come home on Sunday night to find him half packed. He says he is going with them. This kinda leaves me in the lurch since I don't have another roommate lined up or anything, and I can't afford the place on my own. But frick, I can't stop him from leaving. I suppose I could insist that he pays for another month of rent or something, but it didn't occur to me, so I said whatever, and started looking for another roommate the next day. Then later that week, I get the first overdue notice. Then I get a call from the landlord. The sucker hadn't paid any bills in 2-3 months, so he was taking my checks, cashing them, and using the money for himself. Luckily I was able to get most everything straightened out, but it was super stressful for a while, and I still resent him. That's one nasty roommate, dang. When my dad committed suicide, his house was put up for sale at a public auction. The auction was set up by a notary. I was present at the auction, but apart from 2 other couples, no one else was. Because of the exceptionally low turnout, and me being underage and not in the know about this kind of thing, the price was about a quarter of what the house was worth. It was sold. I now have to pay off a 20-year loan to be able to afford a house, while I could have had one for free. Afterwards, we found out that the notary had set up a deal with the bidding couple and forgot to schedule the sale in the official channels. Basically no one showed up because all of 5 people knew there would be a binding sale that evening. My advice: if you're dealing with a notary lawyer, and you're not very knowledgeable in the particular field they're working in, get a second opinion. Heck, get a third if you want to be sure, because there are people out there who won't think twice about taking advantage of a 15-year-old who just became a half orphan. This seems like something you could sue for. A letter you could send to the notary, provide evidence of your announcement in the official channels that the house was for sale, or give me $XXX as damages against what the house was worth. There's a reason notaries have to be licensed. Worst thing I can think of at the moment is while I was deployed in Iraq, my brother's wife offered to do my taxes for me. I said cool thanks. A couple of weeks go by and I asked her how much I'm getting back and she said she couldn't do it. There was some form she needed. I didn't think much of it. As a deployed soldier you are given an automatic extension on your taxes, so it wasn't that big of a deal. I get back and say for a couple of days that I need to go do my taxes. She asks me for a ride, so I drop her off and tell her that I'm gonna go do my taxes, so I'll swing by to get her when I'm done. While I'm filling out the paperwork to get my tax return at H&R, I get a text from her. She had gotten my tax return and spent it while I was deployed. She still hasn't paid me back. I had my best friend's 14-year-old stepsister accuse me of having physical relations with her. She told all of her friends, and then when her parents found out, instead of telling the truth she told a bigger lie. It's been almost 2 years now and I am still fighting the court case. Frick that crap right a heck. Internet hug, dude, comma. My now ex-girlfriend went to study abroad. 2 months and she started cheating on me, but she still called me up and convinced me to visit her for the winter break, where she introduced me to the guy she was fricking, where I slept in the bed they were fricking in, talked to the whole floor, and they knew what happened. I was the chump of the year, I suppose. I found out about the cheating after I got back home. My at the time girlfriend's mom offered me a job worth double what I was making now, but she had to give me an interview to make it look official for HR. I applied, but HR didn't like that I already had a job, so she told me to quit and apply again. So I quit my job and applied again, went in for the interview and everything was great. My application was processing and I was totally going to get the job. I didn't get the job. After her and I broke up like 2 years later, she just admitted she was jealous I didn't have any debt and she wanted me to lose my job so I'd be forced to get a loan so I could be in debt like her and see how it feels. Anyone else hear alarm bells? At HR didn't like that I already had a job. Being claimed as a deduction for being in college while I was in the Persian Gulf, circa 1991, and end up being audited by the IRS. Having multiple utilities, gas, electric, phone, open up in my name. while I was in the Persian Gulf and none of them being paid for, and they were in a totally different state, more than once, having countless credit cards open up in my name, none of the bills paid and having a totally destroyed credit rating for 6 years, while I was in the Persian Gulf. Thanks mom. I purchased a car from a buddy. Its engine was bad, but it had a bunch of custom parts on it I was going to use on my car, which was the same model. I did not have the time to get the parts off, and it sat around for a couple weeks. His dad got impatient and had the car junked. No one told me this was going to happen, or there was a timetable. I asked for my money back, and the dude laughed in my face. Frick that guy. That's what small claims court is for. I had been dating a girl for around 9-10 months. We were great together. No fights, no drama, just kept it chill and had the time of our life. She got a promotion 2 hours away from where we lived and needed to move. She was nervous about the distance, but I only had a year left in school and I would join her. Well, moving day came. She was busy working and had been living in the new spot for a week or two. I grabbed my dad's truck and my band's trailer, and with help from her parents we got all of her stuff loaded up and made the journey. Once we got everything moved out and put into the new apartment, I gave her a call to see what she'd want to do for dinner and the evening in general. She essentially replied with, "I can't do the distance. Sorry." I was completely stunned, and to add insult to injury, her stepdad gave me about $30 for gas after hauling all her crap 2 hours away. Took care of a very sick girl for 2 years. She had no responsibilities whatsoever except to do things that helped keep her healthy. She had everything she wanted and I was happy to provide it. When we broke up, she packed up all my things. I was out of town, and then proceeded to tell horrible lies about me in a thinly veiled attempt to bully me away from fighting for my belongings. Ironically, I would have given her anything she wanted. All she had to do was ask. Over 3 years later I am still stunned by what happened. I was so blind. Not looking for sympathy with posting this, but was sleeping with this guy, always protected. One day he couldn't find a condom and convinced me he had just been tested and was clean and wasn't sleeping with anyone else, etc., and convinced me that we didn't need a condom. Then he infected me with HIV. Lesson learned: trust no one, ever. If he knew that he had HIV, that's a felony where he would be going to jail for a long time. Parents got divorced. Dad kicked my mom out. I was still a senior in high school. I graduate and take a job to try and save up. He decides to get a new girlfriend to spite my mom. Talks crap about my mom and lets this new woman abuse me. She likes to frick with me by smacking a hammer on my bedroom wall really early in the morning. Sneaks into my room while I am at work and steals things from me. Come to my dad begging and crying to help me. He calls me crazy, tells me to lock my doors every day in my own house and accuses my sister of doing it. I catch her stealing from me on the last day of work. I tell my dad. He kicks me out the very next day. I haven't talked to him in over 2 years and I have nightmares about him. I made him pay me back over $1,300 that she stole from me or I'd sue her. I never understood people choosing the random person they're nailing over their children. No shame in never speaking to him again. GF tells me she can't leave with me when I am moving but wants to come in 1-2 months when the semester is over. During this time we talk every day. I continue to help pay her bills, etc. 2 months pass and she says she is ready to move. Come get me. I rent a truck, drive from Colorado to Var, and upon my arrival find a note on the door that she had an anxiety attack and is no longer sure she can move. No call, saying hey we need to talk. No face to face. A note on a door. For your information. 4 weeks later she calls saying she was wrong and loves me. Blah blah blah. I wished her well and never looked back. That would hurt like heck, but you did the right thing. Life's too short. Getting asked by my mother whether or not I wanted to commit suicide with her to be with daddy in heaven at the age of 10. Yeah. I lived with my father. Mother lied and said she had a steady job and a house, so I was sent to live with her because she had ruined my dad's credit by running up huge debts in his name without his knowledge, causing our house to get foreclosed on. She lived in a van behind a strip club. When all of my things arrived she simply dumped them on the side of the road and I never saw them again. Spent the next year living like a homeless person. 10 years old, She threatened me with violence not to tell anyone. Finally I did, and my dad came and got me, but god dang that screwed me up. I was a year behind in school, ill, and I lost all my stuff. Just started college and was living with my grandmother of my father's side. First time staying with this side of the family. Father never cared of me and was incarcerated for his whole life. Needed place to stay till I got my crap together. Within a month living there, father was released from prison and came to live there as well. I didn't know he was going to stay there as my grandmother didn't say anything, as she knew I didn't wanted anything to do with him. Anyway, after about another month of awkwardly living under the roof, my father comes home in a car that he got from an auction. He wasn't working at the time and I assumed he was selling drugs or stolen the car. He got arrested again. Friend joined college same time I did and he got his refund. I didn't. After some investigation work, found out my father took the refund and cashed it, and that's how he got the money for the car. Pee off. I pressed charges and eventually my grandmother found out about it and kicked me out. I was homeless for a few days. Best friend found out about it and his parents gave me a room. TL. DR. Scumbag father took my refund from the grant I received for college and cashed it to buy a car. My ex ceases our physical relationship, citing how it goes against her faith and she feels guilty about it. I am fine with this and we date for 3 more months. Everything seemed great until at the end where she tells me she is 6 weeks pregnant. I am not very good at math, but I do know 3 months, 6 weeks. I don't see the problem here. Someone else got her pregnant. That's your out of jail free card from a crazy. I had a brand new Yamaha R6. Let my friend try it. He's experienced and wanted a new bike, so he tested my bike, did a wheelie and of course dropped it, basically totaled the bike, blamed me for not having full insurance, and he didn't pay a cent. Have not talked to him since, but now I have a brand new R1. Never let anyone ride your motorcycle. If you break it, you pay it, is what I always tell when friends family want to ride my motorcycle or car. Quit my job so I can watch my kids while my wife was deployed to Afghanistan. She falls for a contractor over there and dumps me. Now I'm jobless, wifeless. I'd be freaking homeless too if I wasn't living back at my dad's house. Oh, and when she returns from Afghan she wants full custody of the boys. And I just turned 30 today. Happy freaking birthday to me. Happy birthday, and don't let that bee take your kids away from you. You have looked after them for so long. Hugs. My brother is a contractor, and after offering to handle our whole home renovation, he started demolition, then decided he was too busy to finish and abandoned the project. He just didn't show up for 2 weeks, and when I contacted him he showed zero remorse for fricking me over. I've paid him almost $20,000 upfront as a deposit for work to be completed. The renos started in June. Right now the master bedroom has no fixtures. There's no doors anywhere. The back wall of the 2nd floor is missing. It's October and getting cold. The bathroom is gutted to the studs. The kitchen has missing walls. And there are massive holes in practically every remaining wall. Before just walking off, he'd just not show up for days at a time, or only work a couple of hours, then complain he was underpaid the rest of the time. On top of that, due to him having poor credit, I let him use an extension of my credit card with his name on it to purchase materials, which he then proceeded to use to buy gas, food and booze for himself. When I asked him to stop, he agreed and then continued to do so. I'm now out $50,000 in labor and materials and now I have to find another contractor. Let me point out this important fact. This is my brother who has done this. I accidentally broke the small glass door of my closet. Dad came in, saw the shattered glasses on the floor. I told him it was an accident. He pointed his finger at me and yelled, "You're an accident." I was 11. Just remembering what he said is depressing. My dad once told me he wished he'd named me after him, rather than making my older brother his namesake legacy. I moved in with my mother and her alcoholic husband, which should have been a red flag. And it was, but not enough to avoid the situation. Long story short, she told everyone we mutually know that I am addicted to crack, dropped out of school, and was about to lose my job. None of this is true, or even close to being true. I was living in her house with my 3-1-2-year-old daughter. She called my daughter's dad and told him all of this. Then, She writes a letter to friend of the court. I lost custody of my daughter because of this. I didn't know any of it was coming, so I had no way to defend myself, and I don't have the money to hire a lawyer to fight it out. Oh yeah, and she kicked me out of her house. Not that I could even look at her after all of this happened. I am now homeless. Beat that, Reddit. Good lord, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. Spent close to 10 years working for a guy who I considered to be like family for less than minimum wage. Helped him build his business up into a very successful entity. He had promised I would get a raise and my own store to manage. I trusted him because I had known him since I was a child and he had never steered me wrong before. I did everything he said, and each time I did something new that he asked for, reached a new goal, he said it wasn't done right and I would have to do it again. I brought in a good amount of his clients and kept them there, yet he said no when I said I needed more money to survive. I told him I was quitting my hours back because I had to go get another job. He said I was being selfish. When I took time off to spend with my family and girlfriend, he said I was neglecting my duties. Told me I needed to quit or start over with reduced pay and no title. I quit. Soon after, a number of clients left as well. His wife, who ran the books, is now leaving him and his other employees have left. Clients continue to leave on a regular basis. That place was my life for a long time. It was my dream to have my own location. He promised it to me, but fricked me over. I lost 10 years of my life. Best thing that ever happened to me, though. XGF was living with me. Had a vacation planned to Playa del Carmen. Hurricane Dean hit 2 days before we were supposed to get there, so we had to cancel. Meanwhile, my dad suddenly has to go in for heart surgery. She really pushes me to just switch our vacation to go somewhere else instead of rescheduling for later in the year because we already had it planned and it might be hard to take another vacation once her semester starts, etc. I have to buy new plane tickets, but go to Cabo instead. I'm worried about my dad the entire time. The day after we get home, she announces that she's moving out, and because she met someone new, who she'd apparently been seeing for at least a month or two while living with me. I asked, why the frick didn't you just tell me this last week when the hurricane hit and everything was cancelled? I could have stayed here with my dad and not been out $4K. Her answer was, you hadn't had a vacation in a long time, and I wanted you to get to take one. Selfish B. She's apparently been married twice since then, and that was only 3 years ago. She also used the ticket credit from the cancelled flight to Cozumel I had paid for to take a trip with her new boyfriend for New Year's. She also adopted a dog when she started dating me and left it, although the dog has made my life better. Long story, so I've left out many details. Dated for 6 years. Started in high school, then marry. 2 years after we get married, she graduates college, convinces me to move into a large, expensive duplex, drop my health insurance, to get picked up on hers, buy a truck, take on a few other expenses. My job takes a turn. Most of the employees are let go and rehired as contractors, making around half as much with no benefits. We go to dinner one night and she bails early due to not feeling well. I catch a ride home with our dinner guest and walk in with her sitting in the middle of the bed waiting for me. She proceeds to nuke my world. She's having an affair with a married man who's 6 feet 5 inches, 250 pounds, and a cop. And she's packing her crap and leaving me. So now my job sucks. My health spirals downhill due to crushing depression and anxiety, but I have no insurance and I'm buried under a mountain of debt I can't afford on my own. I do my best to salvage the relationship and she strings me along for a few months before I just can't take it anymore. Breaking point was she said it was over between them and I found out otherwise. What did I do that make her decide to leave? Nothing. I had been such a good boyfriend and husband, she had no reason to ever leave, and she resented me because she didn't get to date much in high school or college and felt she missed out on that part of life. My ex-girlfriend left me while pregnant with my baby, found another guy and either miscarried or aborted the child in the second trimester. I didn't hear from her for 8 months, at which point we reconciled, under the pretense that she hadn't rebounded with this random guy, and then after we hooked up one last time, she took her life. I can't fathom more misery than I'm in over her. It's even worse than that, but for the sake of brevity and not sharing my personal life with a bunch of strangers on the internet, I'll leave it at this. Suffice to say she was my first girlfriend and physical partner, so it makes the wounds all the more incisive. My ex-girlfriend and I had been having a long-distance relationship for a few months. I decided to move closer to be with her as our relationship was becoming strained. This required me to quit my job and move 1,000 miles. She broke up with me within a week after I got there. Reddit gifts. Some useless no good frick from Tampa got me an envelope with 7 paper clips last year. Not indicative of our Tampa Redditors. PM me your address and we'll get that crap fixed right up. Here's another. My grandmother did very well in life, and in death, left a sizable amount of money to the family, including me. That's what I thought, because she showed me a copy of her will about a year before she passed away. I get a copy of the will mailed to me by my uncle's lawyer, and it has her handwriting on a new amendment giving all her estate, her outstanding CDs and investments over to him and him alone to do as he pleases. She was in hospice care for 6 months. And I'm betting money she was high on painkillers when he convinced her to sign the amendment. I still have nothing from her. And he's a Catholic priest. Frick. First relationship ever. I was 19 and he was 24. He was the most manipulative man in the world. He lost his job shortly after we started dating. I later found out he didn't even had a job, so he ended up staying with me for a very long time while he did nothing but sit on his butt, one that he didn't even bother to clean most of the time, left all my couches literally smelling like crap, and play WoW all day while I worked 2 part-time jobs and went to college full-time to support this grown man now living with me, while also paying for his MMO subscriptions. He also managed to push everyone in my life away because there was only room for him in my life. Not to mention the constant bitching whining of how we didn't go on dates anymore, when obviously he wasn't going to be the one paying for it and I was broke because of him. But he'd say just enough to make me feel like crap for it. Also emotionally cheating on me with his WoW buddy, and how they had agreed to frick whenever they saw each other. Never again. When I was 18, my mother decided to move from Philly to Chicago to live with her internet boyfriend and didn't tell me until 10 days before the movers came and she was flying out because, she admitted, she didn't want to give me enough time to make other plans so I'd be forced to go with her, work and help support her. I moved in with my grandmother. 10 years later, after we'd reconciled, I let her live with me. She's disabled, and she did it again, gave me a week notice she was moving, when I couldn't afford the apartment on my own. Which she knew because she would open all my bills and financial statements when the mail came while I was at work. That was 4 years ago and I haven't talked to her since. I had 2 good friends from high school. Friend A, who stayed home, and friend B who went away with me to college. We had been in a band together. We lived down the block from each other and we had been good friends for years. I wound up getting kicked out of school and losing most of the friends I had made there. About 2 years later, I meet this girl and we're texting while she's away at school for the semester. She comes home and we start dating almost instantly. Friend A was very jealous and after some awkward tension, he winds up hooking up with her behind my back. But friend B tells me and I drop him. I gave her a second chance. Please, for the love of God, don't make this mistake. After another month of dating, she ends it with me. Then we find out she's pregnant. A few days before we go to get this taken care of, I find out she actually fricked both friends A and B while she was pregnant. After that, I lost most of my remaining friends, refusing to be around anyone who would be around those 2 guys. My depression and social anxiety got worse and I spent the rest of my schooling making barely any friends. Needless to say, I am friends with none of these people anymore. In fact, I have very few friends in general. Sometimes I call up my parents and say thank you for not opening up credit cards in my name and then maxing them out. Or thank you for paying the mortgage when I was growing up so that I was able to grow up in the same house without constantly moving. Or thank you for not dumping your emotional problems on me when I was a child, and instead finding other qualified adults with whom you consulted about life problems. Usually my parents are confused by these random calls, but they usually come after reading posts like this. Yeah, I'm very grateful to my parents. Probably, when I was in college and I got physically assaulted, Despite mounds of physical evidence, intimidation, and violence, and past weapons charges, my school did not bring the school hearing for 6 months. And then even after they found him guilty, they have him a month to move out, and he was allowed back the next semester. Meanwhile, I had to live in the same building with him. A guy I was cool with in college came into my room on the last day when I was napping and stole my copy of GoldenEye 007 with all the cheats unlocked. The fricking facility level took me forever. Ouch. Just ouch. The summer between my freshman and sophomore years of high school, the girl I was dating, Courtney, started telling me about her older sister. Her sister, Jackie, looked just like her and was 6 years older. As the summer goes on, Jackie starts making some very bad choices. Her family is fundamentalist Christian, so they can't deal with Jackie drinking, doing recreational drugs, or living with her boyfriend. Courtney has been sworn to secrecy and been threatened with physical harm by Jackie's boyfriend if she tells their parents. Jackie continues to ruin her life, doing drugs like C and ecstasy. By this time football season had started, and during one game I collapsed my lung. I was in the hospital for 5 days straight, re-inflating my lung. During this time I was told that Jackie was living on the streets and doing drugs heavily. Courtney repeatedly told me she was going to go look for her sister in the midst of the night. A week or so after I get out of the hospital, Jackie is found by police in an alley, barely living and in a drug-induced coma. My mom tries to call Courtney's mom to set up a time for a visit in the hospital, but the time is too stressful, so I can't go give any support. Fast forward a few weeks, after long midnight conversations including me crying on the phone with Courtney, and I find out that Jackie is not sick at all, because Jackie does not exist. Courtney had answered her mother's phone and told my mom that I couldn't visit. She created 2 fictional people and killed one of them off just for attention and sympathy. That was 3 years ago. The past 2 times that I have talked to her, she has 1. Asked me to meet her for physical intimacy, and 2. Accused me of hacking her Facebook account, the one that hadn't been touched in over 2 years, and told me she was calling the police. TLDR. Crazy girl makes up an older sister, manipulates me while I have a collapsed lung, tells me sister is dying. Sister doesn't exist. Dated a girl for 4 years since high school. Moved to the same city together for college. Moved back home together when things weren't working for me. Best relationship I could ask for. Started saving money for a ring, and suddenly her new friends start telling her I'm using her and other bulls and she cheats on me. I hate when the friends start encroaching. I sympathize greatly. Not sure if this counts, but it did hurt. BF's birthday was a month away and I asked him numerous times what we were going to do. He said nothing. I asked him if we were going to his friend's place, 3 hours drive away, to celebrate. He said nope, don't think so. I think I asked him 6 times what was planned. Nothing each time. Since there was nothing going on, I didn't book the time off work. He told me 2 days before his birthday that his friend, mentioned above, was having a party for him. I told him there was no way I'd get the time off with only 2 days notice. He said it's okay, I understand. He came back and dumped me for not going to his birthday party, saying I didn't care enough about him to bother going. I dropped a banana on the track and ran right into it on the next lap. I am my own worst enemy. My dad, my mother had died, and I got the house. My brother had moved back in, so we were sharing the house. Cost upwards of $100k from her insurance money, and I was 20, had a house and new vehicle paid off. My dad got a shitload of money as well. Bought himself a new truck and a couple of places. His wife was very mad at my brother and I got any share of the money. She saw it as his. They had been divorced for 10 years at this point, and honestly she didn't know he was the beneficiary on any of her policies. But moving on, my stepmother ran through my dad's money, and in a year or so he had sold one of his houses, lost his truck and was losing his other car to a title loan. He then asked if he could put a loan against our house. We live there and he pays it off. My credit sucked, so to get a better rate we signed it over to him so he could get the loan in his name. Next day, my brother and I woke up with an eviction notice taped on our door. I say that because that is what the note said. Turns out, in real estate, There is no deal at all unless it is in writing, so him telling us we could stay there held no water at all. Legally it was his. While his notice wasn't legal, the corrected one was. They sold our house. This was 2003 and I still have not financially recovered. We lived with friends and wherever we could find to stay until we could afford to get to a new place. Oh, both of us had our pregnant women living with us there at the time, too, with his grandchildren. Real dong move. Mine wasn't awful. My boyfriend in high school got my best friend pregnant, then married her. They got divorced shortly after and he pays lots of child support, so I suppose I dodged a bullet. I put in my 2 weeks at my job, and my boss, who absolutely loved me and considered me one of her favorites, wouldn't let me go. She tried hard to manipulate me into saying, "We work retail so she's very good at it." As we were discussing my leaving, she leaves the office and brings in 2 co-workers on our private discussion, one of whom is my best friend, and accuses them as the reason I'm leaving. Real long story. I had no idea my boss would stoop so low, and I felt humiliated, and on top of that my friend thought I totally threw her under the bus. My friend never spoke to me again after that. I left work for good days after the incident. Have been extremely depressed since. My ex-boyfriend was a con artist. He manipulated me into believing he loved me. Then about 2 months into our relationship he began getting very violent with me. He was horribly frightening and I was often marked with bruises and cuts. He lied to me every time he opened his mouth. He lied about graduating from college. He lied about going to the hospital. He lied to me about attending anger management classes. He lied to me about having a license. He lied to me about all the ladies he was cheating on me with. He lied to me pretty much about everything. He also stole my money and stomped on my car key and bent it at a 90-degree angle so I wouldn't be able to escape from him after one particularly enraged argument. He would physically assault me as well to hurt me during these fights. I've been strangled, hit, punched, grabbed, thrown, groped, and spit on. Finally, one night I was thinking clearly and I was able to get away and go to the cops. The nightmare hasn't ended, but at least I know the truth and I'm on the road to recovery. Things I have learned from this thread. Never ever get married. Wear 9 condoms at a time, at all times. Like this video and this good boy will play you a nice song. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.